Welcome to the Financial Freedom Mastermind Group podcast. Here we're all about breaking free from the 40 to 50-year work grind and accelerating our journey towards financial freedom. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern as we explore different types of investments that can fast-track your path to financial independence. We serve as a hub for connecting with fellow members during our sessions so you can share successes, ask questions, and keep the momentum going.
Good evening, everyone. This is Niyi Adewole, host of the Chicago Home Financial Freedom Mastermind podcast, and I'm excited to be joining you on this Wednesday, August 7th. We are officially really kicking into the back half of the year, right? We talked the last time that we met and had an interview with Nasir Young. We got to hear about his story, and tonight's going to be more of an open session, and I actually have a couple of topics that I want to cover tonight, all around the Georgia contract and like how you can rework real estate deals. And so kicking this thing off, it's going to be an open session, so please feel free to jump in, ask any questions, send anything through the chat, and we will definitely address that. But we wanted to take a deep dive session into contracting and how to work this in your favor as we're going after deals, and how the Chicago Home team uses the contracts to protect our clients and put them in a position to win even bigger. And so before I even jump into that, it's been a while since I actually introduced a full team. So I'm going to share my screen here. And what you're looking at right now is the Chicago Home team as it stands today. At this time last year, I want to say we had about 6 members on the team. We are now at 13, and we actually have members in Florida as well as Georgia. And so we're covering the whole state of Georgia as well as Florida. And we are helping a lot of investors get closer to financial freedom, as well as helping regular retail buyers, these sellers, either dispose their house or get into their dream home. And so if you are looking, or you know anybody else that's looking to purchase a home or sell a home, feel free to reach out to the Chicago Home team. We have a lot of referral partners that we work with across the states, and we are personally servicing customers in Georgia as well as in Florida. So that's a major upkeep announcement. And the reason that we're jumping into contracts today is because tomorrow I'm actually leading a session, an internal session with my team, to walk through the contracts and how we can use it in our favor to make sure that we're getting the best deals for our clients. And so a couple of disclaimers up front. One, I am not a lawyer, nor do I play one in TV. And so please verify all this with your real estate lawyer. I'm just going to speak anecdotally about some of the ways that we've used this contract for Georgia real estate to help make deals even sweeter for our clients. And then I'll also show some examples and explain some of the concepts behind these things that we have in that Georgia contract. So again, if you got any questions, feel free to jump into the chat and or join live to ask, and we will go from there. When you look at the Georgia real estate contracts, right, the first thing that I think about is how can you be protected? And there's really 3 protections that come to mind. The first one is due diligence. And due diligence is the strongest protection that you have when you enter into a real estate agreement for residential real estate. Due diligence period with our team is typically between 5 and 12 days, unless you're working on a flip, which at times flip due diligence could be 0 days. You could have it 1 day, you could have it 3 days, but it's significantly less because you're buying a property as is, and you should be getting it heavily discounted so that you can go and make the profits after fixing it up. And so during due diligence period, you can literally walk away for any reason and get your earnest money back. And so taking a step back, earnest money is typically 1% of the purchase price. And so if you're buying a house for $100,000, earnest money would be $1,000. And that's what you put at risk with the closing attorneys to show the seller that you're serious about buying your house. Otherwise, people would say, yeah, I'll pay you whatever for the house, put it under contract, and then not execute without any penalties. That security deposit for earnest money actually puts you to have some skin in the game, and it allows the seller to feel more comfortable allowing you to go under contract with that property. And so during due diligence, you can walk away for any reason. You can literally wake up and say, hey, it's raining outside and the sun's not shining. I think I'm going to exit this contract, and you can get your full earnest money back. That's your first protection. Your second protection is financing contingency. We typically set this at 14 days. And what this does is if you get pre-approved for one of the lenders that we work with, we're pretty confident that you're going to qualify for that loan because we've vetted a lot of lenders. We've worked with a lot of lenders. We found the ones that execute and get it done. Now, if you're working with a random lender, right, who's pushed it to the max, and all of a sudden they run into some snags once they see the property, like, hey, you can't approve this, then if they send us a letter within 14 days, we're able to use that to present to the seller and get your earnest money back and get out of the deal as well. That's financing contingency. And then the final piece is the appraisal contingency, which protects you on the value of the home. And so when you look at the appraisal contingency, when you look at properties, especially for investors, what we're focused on is running the numbers as well as the neighborhood to ensure that this is going to be a solid investment over time and that it's going to hit the metrics and the numbers that investor is looking for. What our team is coached to do is not necessarily to try to become an appraiser, right? We do run CMAs, but we're not appraisers. We don't know what that appraiser is going to feel like on a given day and if they're going to appraise a high, low, or somewhere in between. But what we do is make sure that in our contracts that aren't flips, that we have an appraisal contingency built in. Typically it's 21 days, so that if the home appraisal is low, we have the ability to renegotiate that with the seller, right? And we've negotiated a lot of deals where we've been able to get the seller to reduce the price because we're so close to closing, and that in turn the deal into a great deal. Or if the seller's unwilling to budge on that number, we can walk away and take the earnest money and still be protected. And so that's your appraisal contingency, and those are those three top protections. Now, one of the things that a lot of people are starting to explore, and we're educating our clients on, is the use and the reason behind seller credits. And so when you look at your closing costs, if you're buying that primary home, your closing costs should be anywhere from, it should be roughly about 3%, right? But if you're buying an investment property or anything in between, or like a vacation home, it's usually between 3 and 5%. So that's a lot, especially when you factor that in on top of the down payment that you're giving. Let's say that you're putting, 20% down on a $100,000 house for easy math. That's $20K. You got to come up with another 5% potentially, right? Another $5,000 to put down just to cover closing costs. That's not going toward the mortgage or things of that nature. And so one of the things that we've done as a team is we prioritize trying to get these seller credits toward closing that we can use to knock out some of these closing costs. And if we get a significant amount, we could potentially buy down the interest rate for our clients to help them lower that amount out of pocket up front, right? Which essentially increases their cash on cash return because they had less money in the deal. And so when you look at the government and what they're trying to incentivize, they make it very clear. They like home ownership because one, it's helping with the housing issue. It means that a different homeowner who's going to live in that house has now purchased there. It gives you another taxpayer and somebody that's going to use all the community resources and pay to different vendors that are around the neighborhood, which overall helps the overall economy, the neighborhood, and things of that nature, right? I'm not saying that renters don't or investors don't. It's just a homeowner is going to use a lot more of the resources in the area to help that neighborhood. And so the way that federal lending and things of that nature works is they've subtly incentivized home ownership. And I'll give it to you like this. When you talk about seller paid credits, there's caps and limits on how much a seller can assist you with if you negotiate it. And so if you're looking to buy a primary or a secondary loan, if you put down less than 10% as a down payment, you have a higher than 90-10 loan to value, you could only get and you're going to live there, you could only get a max of 3% toward close, right? And so in that 100,000 example, you get $3K toward closing, you'd have to pay the other potential, $2K out of pocket. If you were going to do more than 10%, between 10 and 25% down, you can get up to 6% toward closing, which is awesome. That means you would cover your closing costs in that scenario and have $1,000 to potentially buy it out of the interest rate, which will get the minimum sooner. And if you have a 25% down payment or more, right, then you can get up to 9% in seller credits, which now you're really cooking, right? Like you're really doing well if you're able to put down 20%, 5% on the property, and you negotiate 9% toward closing. Now, for investment properties, it doesn't really matter how you pick it up as an investment property, whether it's the SCR loan with 15% down or a conventional loan, 25% down. You can get a max of 2% in seller credits toward closing. And so they still are essentially forcing you to pay even more out of pocket, which makes it harder for you to buy investment properties as compared to a home buyer buying a primary residence. If you and a home buyer had the exact same budget, like, hey, I can only afford X, the home buyer would be in a more advantaged position to offer a little bit more for that house and get it, because they would not have potentially have to pay as many closing costs, one, and two, they potentially could have a lot more assistance from the seller to help them get across the finish line. Now, when you talk about FHA loans, the cool thing about FHA is that is an automatic 6% that you're allowed to get toward closing, which is awesome. And so sometimes if you're on the edge of the conventional and FHA, this piece may push you over it, depending on what you're able to negotiate, because 6% toward closing can be a heck of a lot and a major utility for what you're trying to do with compound interest rate and making that deal even sweeter. VA loans is an automatic 4% toward closing, and then USDA loans is 6% toward closing, and it kind of continues from there. And so one of the pieces that we as an Akaba home team have been able to do for our clients, because we're investors ourselves, we see these limits and we always are asking questions of, one, why are they there? And we're not looking at to say, right, we're always asking, how could it be done? And is there a way to get creative? And so, for example, we've had a few deals where we've gone well over that amount. And we'll say, quote unquote, loophole is if you're able to negotiate all these credits and maintain an amicable relationship with the seller, so where they're willing to do some of the work and you're planning to do ahead of time, you can reallocate those credits to checks that are cut to the vendors at closing for the work that they're doing. So, for example, let's say that you want a kitchenette put into your basement, right? So you can turn it into a basement rental unit, and that kitchenette's going to cost you $10,000 to put it in. If you've already agreed to, say, 20,000 seller credits and you only need 10 to cover closing, you could essentially, and this is what we've done a couple times, give back that 10K before closing and have that contractor complete the work ahead of time and then get paid at closing from seller proceeds. And so it's money coming from the seller. It's the seller doing work on their own property and getting paid. It's the same net to the seller, but now you are coming with less out of pocket, which again increases your cash on cash return because you've wrapped getting the unit updated into your loan. Now, not all sellers are going to go for this, but we found a way to explain it to seller agents in a way that it's a bit less threatening, and we had a pretty good success rate in getting this done, which is awesome. I actually just did it with a personal property where we got that piece done. The other thing to think of is extensions, right? Extensions, there's something that's new, or not even new. It's unique to the Georgia real estate contract, and it's called the 8-day unilateral extension. It's supposed to be the buyer or the seller can utilize this for financing reasons. If there's like, hey, I hadn't received my disclosures in time before closing, or a myriad of reasons, you can use that 8-day unilateral, give notice to the other side that you're going to extend closing for up to 8 days. And this single line that's inside the Georgia contract has helped save countless number of deals. Because there's signs really tied to it at the end, and the lenders are still working through documents, things of that nature, and you need that extra day or two, and you're able to utilize this 8-day unilateral to get up to 8 days to make it happen from there. And so that's one that we've utilized a significant amount, and it's something that we keep in our back pocket, and it ties into the next piece that I wanted to talk about as well, which is closing day, right? A lot of people will take their foot off the gas when you start getting toward that closing day piece. And for us as fiduciaries for our clients, what we're trying to do is make sure that we get you all the way through the whole process, right? And we want to make sure that we capitalize in every portion of it. So what I've explained this whole time is how we negotiate due diligence, how we negotiate financing, how we negotiate the appraisal contingency, seller credits, how we're using it, right, to try to make the deal even sweeter. The closing day is also important. A lot of people are just like, oh, yeah, whatever day you pick is good. But if there is, say, updates that need to be made to the house, say you're planning to renovate a unit and there's not going to be income coming from that, what we try to do is set closing as close as we can to the first of the month. Reason being, if you were to close, say, today, right? Today's August 7th. If you close today, your next mortgage payment is not September, it's actually October. Right? And it's October 15th if you wait until the last day to make the payment. And so you essentially have 2 full months to get all the renovations done. Maybe that takes you 30 days. And then you have another 30 days of income coming in from that property that's going to help you pay that mortgage in October. Whereas, let's say you close toward the end of the month. If you close on August 30th, right, then your first payment is October, right? And so that's a lot less time. And so it's ideal if you can work it in the deal to have the close date either very close to the end of the month for you to use the 8-day unilateral extension and or communicate with the other agent to push it to the first, or to have it on the first of the month so that you have the ability to get the most time to rack up some cash for some investment before you actually have a mortgage due. And so these are a couple tips that I'm going to go over with my team actually tomorrow. And I shared the screen a little bit earlier, so those that might have missed it will be able to catch it on the replay. But the Cabo Home Realty team has grown significantly through the years. In 2021, it was, and 2022, it was a team of one. It was yours truly, right, running around how to make it happen. In 2023, we started taking on team members, and we ended the year with 8 team members on the Cabo Home team, which was awesome. And now, midway through 2024, we actually have 13 team members and growing, and it's pretty incredible. We're covering all of Georgia. We also cover Florida. And so if you know anybody that is looking to buy or sell, whether it's an investor or a regular retail buyer, we're willing to help and see with love. And with that, I think I've been on the soapbox for a bit. And yes, I am with you, AJ. Shout out to the 8-day unilateral. But this is going to be an open session, so feel free to bring any topics you have forward, any questions forward. What I just covered was just tips and tricks on the Georgia real estate contracts and how you can use that to your advantage to make a good deal, great deal. After show. Any questions, comments, feel free to join as well. Yeah, everybody's busy multitasking and watching the Olympics. Hey, no worries. Yeah, that running stuff, man, I gotta get on it, but I'm not quite there yet. Like, I'll stick to tennis. Speaking of which, we got to get a game here soon. Now that I'm settled into the new place, we will get going here soon. So while we wait for any questions, comments from the group, I'm giving you just my take on the market right now, right? So this is, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but we're essentially in a buyer's market. And I think for a lot of us, we're in a buyer's market and we're potentially heading into a recession if we're not already in. And for a lot of the individuals that are millennials, this is going to be the first quote unquote recession you've been in where you're an adult, right? Where you are actively in the market buying real estate or stocks, investments, and things of that nature. And so, and for me, I'm going back and reading some of the books from the greats that I read back in the past from, the Warren Buffetts of the world, where he's like, hey, when everybody is fearful, that's when you're greedy. When people are greedy, that's when you should be fearful, right? And when you start to think about some of the advice, the sage advice that has stood the test of time, what I notice right now is a lot of people are pretty fearful. I've had to walk I've had a conversation with a lot of different individuals that were in the midst of, I think I should sell a house right now and things of that nature. And it's like, no, I think you should take a view on the market long term, right? You bought this property long term. And if you try to flip something short term that wasn't meant to be flipped short term, like the value of that property, that's how you lose money, right? Whereas when you look at it long term view and you start to say, okay, here goes the things that are coming to the metro. This is a short blip in the road. You talk about just like the next decade from now, you're going to be happy to have this property or not, right? And so I'm always constantly thinking long term and also trying to use that when everybody's digging. And I still like to say that right now is an awesome time if you have liquidity and or partners to go and purchase real estate. I can't tell you how many deals come across the board each day where there's potential to do seller financing, right? To where you could literally come to the table with minimal down and take over somebody else's payment, subject to seller financing. There's plenty of realtors reaching out and slicing prices like crazy. I just saw this 6-bedroom, 4-bath, dope gate, long driveway, big house that would make an amazing Airbnb or midterm rental that has steadily dropped their price from, I think they were at like roughly $1 million. They were like $950 or so, and now they're at like $550, right? It's a property that's still going to appraise for significantly more, but like there's opportunities in this market if you are willing to be greedy while others are fearful and have a long-term approach and have the liquidity to kind of ride out short-term storms. So I'm excited about that piece. And I think I've talked to a couple people on here, but I recently closed on a duplex that we were able to negotiate significant amount of credits, and we were able to get a kitchenette put in with some of those credits. So where we essentially turned that duplex into a triplex. I actually have people back there right now who are probably going to pull an all-nighter putting everything together, and I'm going to go join them after this call to make sure that we can get the TVs, get all the wallpaper up, all that stuff, and get this thing launched next week as a luxury short-term rental, because we are going to lean in to this environment. But again, this is an open session. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat or comments and or join live. My God.
What's up, boss?
Desmond, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Come on, man. We got another booking.com. I'm good.
Absolutely, man.
I'm good. And dude, I know we were talking about it the other day, and I was super excited. I'm even more excited because the devices should be here by the end of the week. That reminded me. So Desmond and I are talking about this way where, as you continue to grow your portfolio, how do you optimize it? How do you squeeze more lemon or more juice out of that lemon, right? You've already got multiple short-term rentals, and with the Acaba Home team, you have about 35 now under management. And so we recently partnered with this company, StayFi, and they have these Wi-Fi receivers, right, that you plug into your house, and it's like extension devices, but it works like a hotel, where when people check in, they essentially would have to give their email, and a valid email, and their phone number to access the Wi-Fi on all their devices, and then it goes to a system, and it automatically sends email marketing to them. The reason that we're going forward with it is, one, we have the breadth of a lot of properties that we can market to, and two, we want to be able to boost our direct numbers, right? Right now, I think we're at like around 10% or so of our bookings are direct, or maybe 7%. We want that to be at 30%. And the way that we can do that is by not only marketing to the host that booked it, or the guest that booked it, but to the other 11 people that are with them, and trying to keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a super cool thing that, like, and we were talking about this earlier, it's really cool to see, you know, how your portfolio has like progressed. And now you're bringing in like these more sophisticated, you know, aspects of the business. And I feel like for someone, my operations caliber, right? So just 3, you know, short-term rentals, I don't really know if it would make sense for like, you know, that small of a portfolio. But then again, I feel like direct can make sense no matter what kind of rental you have, right? And I think it's just a matter of how much you're willing to lean in on that piece. Like right now, or I think in the past, I haven't really felt the need to lean into that direct, and I've been like grateful for that. But here recently, it's definitely been something I've been considering more, just as I've been having to check the calendar more, having to think a bit more about, you know, how to attract guests and get bookings and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something I might even, you know, try out if I can, you know, try that out for cheap, or, you know, work that out in some way. But yeah, I think it's a great idea for sure. And I've heard about it a bunch, if not even through StayFi, just the idea of like collecting guest info to increase the direct. Cause like, you never know what's going to happen with the platform. And like, I hear horror stories all the time of like hosts with like thousands of reviews and like many properties, and they just get like banned off of one random one-off experience. So
even like, I'll give you one. So we bought a house subject to earlier this year that we talked about a while ago, and it was running smooth. Like, it was bookings galore. You know, we had like a month and a half booked up. We were excited about it. And then midway through all those stays, Airbnb suspended our listing. And they're like, oh, well, there's another listing of this address. You can't have 2 listings of the same address. Well, I sent them all the documentation the same day. Like, here goes the settlement statement. It's a new owner. The other listing was taken down. Look at the pictures. They're different, right? All this stuff. It took them 2 weeks. And they canceled all the remaining bookings in front of them. It took them 2 weeks to get us back on live, right? And that was just off of a misunderstanding, not anything happening, right? And so when you see stuff like that happen, it definitely shows you that you're vulnerable. And I think 3 is enough, man. Like, you have 3 properties. It's just setting aside some time, because Hospitable does a lot of the work. It's honestly not that hard to do it through them. It's just going to be a little bit of an extra expense, maybe like $50 extra a month or something like that. So go ahead and build your direct site, because now, even when you're looking to market to other owners, like, hey, I can manage yours. I don't necessarily send them the Airbnb. I usually send the link to our hospitable so they can see all of it and it's nice and clean. They see our marketing. It's like, oh man, this is awesome. Pictures, right? And you're not distracted by, okay, what is this one bad review, right? As opposed to look at the breadth of the portfolio that we're managing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're definitely right. Like, honestly, I've been, like I said, I think I've just been fortunate enough to where I haven't really had to like think about it, or like things have kind of just been flowing smoothly up until this point. But I'm definitely at the point to where I want to like optimize. I want to just be better about, how I'm running things. So yeah, it's definitely a point that I'm gonna follow you up on and like, yeah, get on that, because I don't want to, one day randomly get blocked either. So
No, and I'm definitely going to keep you posted on kind of how the StayFi experiment goes.
please
We're
do.
going to be launching this luxury B&B here next week. We actually got guys working right now. We're planning to pull it over here, which would be awesome, and get this thing done because there's some bonuses in play. So they're like, hey, we're going to do that. So
That's cool.
So looking forward to that piece. $5 for smartwatch should be added. Yeah, there may be an extra fee for that piece, which is actually not that bad. But yeah, I'll keep you posted on the StayFi piece. It's one where you just keep adding things little by little over time. I think we've talked about that a lot. It definitely didn't start off like this. Before it was like bootstrapping it, right? And then over time, you can add other layers because there's more income coming in. And you can start to add other services that make a lot of sense. The one thing I'm trying to figure out, though, is and how it would work to bring cleaners into like paid hourly on staff, whether they're working or not, and figure out that amount. Because right now, when I look at the dollars that are going out to the cleaners every month, they're awesome, amazing crews, but it's upwards of $20K a month now. So when I look at that, I'm like, this could be funds coming back to the management company if we were to pay somebody, say, I don't know, $15 to $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, right? And you're not necessarily even working 40 hours a week, you're just getting consistent. I'm trying to think through that. That's the next step.
Yeah, because that's something that has kind of been in the back of my mind too. Like, even just with having 3, I'm like, man, especially if the occupancy is, where it should be and where I want it to be, the cleaners are here on a pretty consistent basis. And I think it's the piece of having consistent like pay and consistent work that can be challenging and can, like, I think, be the tough piece that's figured out. Because yeah, sure, typically you might have, 3 or 4 cleans a week, maybe, but like it can be so variable, right? That I think it's going to be hard for someone to want to sign on to saying, hey, like, I'm okay with my schedule being variable and being based off the calendar. So I think some sort of consistent pay is required, but I think it would take some figuring out and some like good crunching of the numbers to make sure that like you're not screwing yourself out. Right. And like there's enough work for where it makes sense, but then also like it's going to make sense for someone to want to take on that job and like you're paying them enough. But yeah, I definitely think the size of where you're at, I wouldn't be surprised if, they're doing a cleaning every day or cleaning every other day at least. Right. And even if you just start with a few people, starting off, I feel like I would imagine that being another kind of next natural step for you to take as you continue to build things out.
Dude, I'm 100% with you. And it's one where we are at a scale where it couldn't make sense. If you were to just map this out, $20 is a lot per hour, right? Times 40. Times 40 hours, $800 times 4. It's like, I'm going to round up. It's $3,200, but I'm going to round up to $3,500. Say $3,500 per month for one person. And then say you need at least, say, 3 people, right? Because you need one person that can work weekends, another person that can work during the week consistently, and then another person is like a backup, right? So 3,500 times 3, that's 10,500. That's not that bad. There's going to be some times where you're not going to have as many cleanings and you still got to keep people on staff. But if you put that money aside for the good times, it could be a gold. Like when I look at that and I say, okay, 50% increase in profits, if you work ahead of kind of taking it on and having some people on staff. The piece that I question though is exactly what you said, like it is really weird. It's not like a normal job or, hey, you're coming here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're literally, well, but it could be. It could be I'm paying you X amount per month, and these are the days that you work. Like the days you got to hit X number of properties.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be no properties.
Right. I think that's the piece that you have to be comfortable with and like might take a little more thinking of like when there is no work, is it okay for the cleaner to do nothing, or do I have them go to the property and clean up outside? Right? I don't want to just be creating work, for no reason, but I also don't want to just be, handing out money for you to be sitting on the couch just because like Jimmy extended for another week,
It's true.
So I think that's the piece that for me would be tough to part with, that money of like, oh, I know there's not going to be a cleaning for the next month, right? But you're getting paid. So likely it's not going to be that long. But so I think that's the piece that like in my mind is a bit harder to understand, because I think there are still things that like could be done that aren't necessarily a part of like the day-to-day cleaning, right? So even if it's okay, here's a piece that I've really tried to like get better at and just think through is like deep cleans, checkups every so often. And I saw AJ post on his Instagram story not so long ago as he was doing one like a monthly checkup of his Airbnb. I will try to go in there at least, well, I have on my kind of schedule to go in there every 3 months and do like a deep clean. So that's beyond what the cleaners are doing, beyond what I expect them to do. And it's really something I want to be doing myself and like want to have my own kind of eyes and ears and hands on, to where, I'm cleaning the couch and, we're dusting the fans and like just specific things. I'm doing inventory. And right now I have a small enough, portfolio to where I can go and do that on my own. And like, I'm still doing that myself. I think eventually I will even offload that. But for now, like, that's my task. I'm okay with that. But I realize like that's something that's going to have to be offloaded. But I think it's something like that could be thought about, right? To where like, hey, if we don't have a cleaning this day, well, let's go make another property, just that much better. And I think like you don't want to be creating busy work because people can sense that. But you have enough properties to where it's like, if you're doing it every 3 months, that's probably like a week, or every week that a deep clean would be done. And I don't know if you guys have, I know you said you have the operation manager and she goes and does those kind of checks and stuff, but I don't know what kind of cadence, you have or, what that looks like.
But to that, like, what you just, and I love workshopping this stuff with folks that are in this too, because we all, you come from a different angle. I love what you just said, because I didn't think about that. Like, these days, you're on call from this time to this time, right? And so if a house needs to get, re-cleaned, or somebody's like, hey, I need to do whatever, something got missed, or let's say that the operations manager, it has to hit 3 houses to go change batteries. But even that piece, these 3 people are under your purview for these days, or these 2 people, and then on these days it's these 2 people. I think that could work out. Then you always have the, hey, their cleaning's the priority. But if there's not a lot of cleanings to like assign to them, then it shifts over to
everything goes within reason. And I think it's like, telling them, hey, the operations manager isn't going to go tell you to jump off a bridge, right?
No.
But, and this is something that came
together a B&B, she may say, hey, come join me to help unbox these.
Precisely, like you're on the clock, right? And like, we want you over here, helping us out. And that's a very reasonable request, right? And there are, you don't know what could come up. So for instance, for me today, I got a message from a guest earlier this morning, and he was saying, hey, Desmond, everything is great, but I was trying to make a cup of coffee, and I noticed that the Keurig, like, isn't working, and it has the descale light on. And I'm like, okay, like, that's fair. So if you have a coffee machine, maybe like year and a half, for some reason, the machine needs to be what's called descaled. I don't really know what that means. You have to do some special process, descale it, and then you can make coffee again. I know that's a requirement. So like it comes up, not enough to where truly I have like a reminder for it or a to-do item for that. But like now I all of a sudden had 2 Keurigs sitting on my kitchen table that need to be descaled. So I guess later tonight at like 9 p.m. I'm gonna be descaling Keurigs. And like, did I plan to be doing that? No. But like, is that something that comes up and needs to be done? Yes. And I feel like there are just always, it seems like those one-off random things, batteries or descaling, or, oh, there's a spot on the couch and the cleaners weren't able to get it. They had to leave. Like, whatever it might, like, there's just a million things I feel like that can come up. And I think with the amount of properties you have, it doesn't have to always be like the routine cleaning. It could be almost like you said, everything under the sun that the operations manager needs help with, within reason, right? And going from there, and just like starting from there, and then building that out. And having a specific scope of work, eventually, but starting out like, hey, look, it's cleanings and then whatever else we kind of need you for.
Yeah. And I think it could get broken down because now I'm thinking even deeper. We could figure out what that daily amount is. And maybe it's, so we talked about 3,500 in a month. You divide that by 30, we're looking at like 125 or so a day, we'll call it. Something like that, right? So like 125 a day. So each day that you're on call, it's $125 that's coming your way to pay you weekly. And so like if you're like, hey, I want to work X number of days with your team, on these days you're working with us. And that would help you to even scale up to have, more staff. The only piece that kind of comes back is right now it's pretty autonomous. You know how it goes with the cleaners, right? I don't really think about it at all. They're doing their own thing. You're managing it. If somebody shows up sick or whatever, they're replacing them with somebody else. And so are we ready to take on that task of really recruiting and maintaining and kind of going from there, which is deeper question.
Yeah. And that's something that I was kind of like worried about too. And like having in-house cleaning is like now you are taking on the role of basically cleaning manager, right? Like now you're the manager of a cleaning team. So it's like all those problems that like, typically like Certify was handling or whoever, was handling that before. Now like that's kind of coming back to you. But I think it's all about having someone responsible. So I think just how you have an operations manager, maybe that means you now have a cleaning manager. And every cleaner is actually, reporting to her. And that cleaning manager is the one who, is responsible for kind of, she might even start doing the weekly, like, hey, let's do a weekly, make sure we're doing the cleanings. And, so I definitely think it's something you could build out and like have one person you really trust, to maybe.
Hey, you heard it here first. All right, Desmond just described the role. We're looking for a cleaning manager. I haven't figured out the pay yet. It's probably going to be incentivized based off of what we make, right? So that you can grow with the company. And so if you're interested and have some experience managing cleaners, hit me up, seriously. Because that would be awesome to get another 10K or so into the business. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm looking for a role too. I don't know what it is, so don't apply. I'm looking at it.
Hey, I was looking for help. Somebody help me. All right, you tell me. Yeah,
you tell me what we need to do. No, seriously. Yeah, that's funny. And I think it's funny because I feel like, in this kind of like, and we've talked about it before, like in this weird, like small, medium range, I feel like that's kind of a sentiment of a lot of owners, or at least I hear a lot to where it's like, you're not big enough yet, but you're big enough to where you have, constant stuff that needs to be done. So I think it's a common problem. I think it's good to know that like, it's good having groups like this, I'll say, right? Especially when it's a larger group, right? And we are, typically, just whatever it comes up and we can talk about. And like, I think having folks to go through it with together can definitely be super important. So I'm, grateful for you for setting up spaces like this. So
come on now.
Thank you.
This is real estate strategy, and it's also a therapy session. So I appreciate you,
truly,
and everybody that joins for continuing with that spirit. Because at the end of the day, the longer we all stick with this, the better it gets. It just gets better and better each year, more stabilized. All of a sudden, there's more income coming in. It's just when you're new in this, and I remember the feeling, you get like hey, I need a jump mentality, but you got to have that long-term vision, figure it out one problem at a time. And over a short distance of 3 to 5 years, all of a sudden, you're not even thinking about that property, and it's just growing and helping you hit your goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, Desmond, I appreciate you jumping on. AJ, I know you're still running, man. Kill that howl for us, and I will catch you a little bit later.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern as we explore different types of investments that can fast-track your path to